in the first part of the master class, we kind of laid the foundation on what are the different types of authority, what do they look like, how do you read them, and some basic things. Now it's how do you actually do it? And this is, I think, where a lot of people struggle with the actual application of it. And so we're going to go through a bunch of strategies on how you can approach tax research. We're going to do some live opportunities kind of off the cuff to maybe do some research in the class, and we'll go from there. So the first thing I want to talk about are some strategies on how to actually read the different authorities we talked about on the prior session. And reading tax law is sometimes like reading a foreign language. I think actually it mostly is reading a foreign language. And if you don't read it correctly, or you don't have a strategy on how you approach it, I think it's really easy to actually misinterpret what is being said. And so we're going to go through these 8 strategies on how you can read different tax authorities. After this, we'll go into how you find them, and then we'll build into the process from there. So the first strategy I want to give you is something called logical skimming. And so logical skimming is a way where you can take a look at the code section and kind of get an idea of it without actually reading every line. So the way it usually works in the code section is the first subsection, which is A, gives you the general rule that applies in that code section. For like 121, gain from a sale of a primary residence is excluded. And then everything else gives you either definitions related to that or special rules related to that. But you can't assume that the rule in subsection A is all you need. So what you actually can do is each subsection has a heading. And if you look at the headings, they give you an idea of the ones that you need to read to address your research question. So here's just a very basic example with code section 469. We know the rule in 469 related to passive losses and passive credits can only be used to the extent of income or tax attributed to passive activities. Well, let's say we wanted to know about what happens if I contribute a rental activity in a tax-deferred exchange to a partnership. How would I approach that by looking at the code itself? Well, if I do logical skimming, if I get to subsection G, it talks about disposition of entire interest in a passive activity. Oh, I may want to take a look at that. And then if I look right below it, the heading says fully taxable transaction, right? So I need to dispose of the entire interest in a passive activity in a fully taxable transaction in order to release the loss. So that gives me an idea that, well, maybe the loss is not released. Now, it doesn't exactly address the answer to my question, but it gives me a clue. And I got that just from kind of skimming the subsections and reading the headers.